So I'm here with Dr. Asta Zelenkauskaite from Drexel and Dr. Carmel Weissman from Israel, who are going to present today at our third event on social media in crises. So I know that we're joined from some students. I know we have some students here from Drexel and from, I believe, the UK, if I remember my names correctly, from Sophie Jane. But yeah, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much for having us. And I will start first. And I would like to share my slides. So I hope you can see them. So I'd like to start this presentation and conversation about social media in crisis from the perspective of the hero's journey. And I want to use this hashtag canceled due to COVID-19 as kind of like a lens or a case to look at this question. So I want to invite you to look at the question of the of this hashtag through seeing it as an enactment of the hero's journey, and hero's journey that takes place through technology in this case. But I want to look at it, or want us to think through it as a mystique of the hero's journey that has been described by Joseph Campbell in the past in his book on the hero with 1,000 faces. So what does it mean, and how does it take place? In some ways, the hero's journey is going from the known to an unknown, and it's going through. It's sort of like an adventure in some ways, and we have to go through certain challenges, and to go through the transformation and return as different people. So this journey is as a sharpened edge of a razor, hard to traverse, a difficult path it is. So that's the mystique of it. And in some ways, I want to look at it from the perspective of enactment of rituals that take place, and kind of look at it in online spaces. So the image of this hero's journey should help us lead and lead us through these difficult thresholds of transformation that take place, that we have to come through. And COVID-19 probably is a great example of that. And typically in the when Campbell was looking at it, he looked at the various cultures across the world, and there is the same idea of the myth that has been reenacted across cultures through various ceremonies or rituals, such as name-giving, birth, puberty, or marriage. And these rituals, what's really meaningful in them, they demand us to change the patterns of how we live or how we think from our conscious life, but also unconscious life. So this image that I'm bringing from his book is the monster tamer, is the example how the hero is approaching basically various monsters that are in front of us. And for us, probably it's this example of the COVID-19. So a kind of a analogy that somebody has created for Campbell's hero's journey adopted to COVID-19 is this idea that for us nowadays, we are living a different journey. Many times it's a journey of loss. It's a journey of like a mourning of the missing hero's journey. And it's in this image, which is not very clear, you can see that for us, probably new territory is going to get groceries and new challenges that we're facing are this perception of what is a journey can be different. So first of all, I would like to invite all of you during this talk to write your own kind of missed or due to COVID or canceled due to COVID-19 as your own experiences, because I'm sure that we're all experienced that. So the question I'm asking, how these rituals are enacted through technology in online spaces, and to what degree they are, we can look at them. So typical enactment that we can look in online spaces with this hashtag cancel due to COVID are those typical events or typical cases of multiple events that have been announced, as this one, Tbilisi office suspended public events in Tbilisi and Yerevan, and across the world, this hashtag has been used to make these announcements, right? Basically as an information type. Also, there have been this missing or missed heroes kind of a journey through looking at examples such as this one, where the person wants to travel, but it has been canceled. So till we meet again. Maybe more interesting examples of the reenactment through rituals have been examples, for example, canceled graduation, missing passages from one state to the other, as Campbell would state, and in this case, the graduation, where the ritual is reimagined. So this tweet is a video where the student is showing or walking through all the steps that would require her to get a diploma for graduation. Similarly, another ritual that is reenacted through technology is toasting. So this family saying we are, so basically cheering for somebody who got married. So in this case, it's the toast that is, through the video again, enacted the celebration. Another case is the missing ritual as a missing birthday celebration. So in this case, a mother of this daughter is outsourcing the public as through the enactment of the birthday requests, where she says, had to break it to my little one that today, that her first ever birthday party won't be happening on Saturday. And so I know that it's any birthday messages would be great, so she can watch them at the weekend. So this enactment, I call it outsourced enactment. Another example is of the missing rituals is the enactment of the cruise. So this tweet is also a video where this couple is toasting. Again, very ritualistic setting where they're in the robes. And if you watch this video, basically it shows the sea on their screens. So I tried this one. We were supposed to be cruising out of Barbados today. So missing spaces as another ways through the images or visuals, the reenactment of locations have been also used on Twitter by saying missing spaces. We were supposed to have reached this place, and hopefully we'll be able to see that on August. So there are no people, but the place itself becomes the reenactment of this ritual. And more specifically, I would like also to show you some of the examples of the shows that also touched me personally. So Miss Global Public Events, a lot of festivals. So for me, one of the dear festival that was missed this year is the study abroad to Eurovision with Drexel students that I am missing greatly. And I wanted to share some of the examples from the Eurovision, which was canceled as a festival, but it has been reenacted again through mediated spaces where, and Twitter has been also very much involved in enacting and remediating this. So first example is a tribute of enactment. And this tweet has kind of cross-referentiality of the event itself. So first of all, the festival took place last year in Israel. And so this tweet actually shows the tribute to Israel and saying Jerusalem tonight shines a light in a tribute to Eurovision 2020. And shine a light is one of the also hashtags used in this festival this year. So this reenactment is through the place as a tribute, where people, and also it's streamed live during the time when the event, the final event should have taken place. So this solidarity streaming is used as an enactment. Another example of enactment is through technology by performing together. So the Eurovision itself has created two examples of enactment by, and there were several tweets showing that. Basically, the first one you can see on the left corner is the enactment of, I call it fragmentation and reassemblage of the synchronized performance. That's an orchestra that was playing one of the songs, where you see the fragmented orchestra and reassembled as an enactment of this performance for us. And on the right corner, there is also the same fragmentation and reassemblage of the singers, the performers who were taking place or won this year's National Eurovision contest or selection. They were singing together the song Shine a Light, and also in this fragmented screen. Fan reenactment of being together is also an example of another example of it, where fans were reassembling together in a synchronized environment to watch the show. So canceled Eurovision, that won't stop us. Remote Eurovision judging panel right here. And then the other group also is saying, watching Eurovision 2020, countries represent, and so different people from different places. Synchronized watching as a reenactment. Reenactment of celebration was another theme that was very much prominent, of co-viewing in absence of others, was created by assemblage of various screens. As you can see, this person has socially distanced Eurovision 2020 with pizza, prosecco, tea, wine, and good people. And as you can see, the screen is split and there are these ritualistic elements in it, like having this glass and food as a type of celebration. Similarly, others have enacted as almost like through a compensation of absence of the group. They proposed dressing up as a ritual. So for example, this one user says, watching the Eurovision substitute show in the living room, I got dressed up anyway. And another user said, if you can dress up for to watch Eurovision, what can you dress up for? I hope for, for any classes for you. So another example of enactment is the digital substitute. So compensating for absence of others, again, other person said, as I didn't have anybody to watch Shine a Light with, I glued myself into a photo to have some friends. I would like to kind of wrap up this reenactment through this idea that coming back to the idea of a transformation, in some ways, these mediated technologies allowed these users to go through this process of transformation or birth, as it is within the Campbell's hero's journey, that only birth can conquer the death, as Campbell says. The birth, not of all things again, but something new. So hopefully this, for these users in some ways, this reenactment of technology allows them to navigate through or go through this transformation. And I hope you will have a great holidays this year. And I would like to end with this. Thank you.
Okay, my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. That was fascinating. Thank you for having me here. Nice to meet you, everyone. I come to you from Tel Aviv. It's almost 5 p.m. here, and I'm a digital culture researcher. And first, I want to acknowledge how lucky we are in dealing with crisis in the 21st century. When things were canceled during Black Death or Spanish flu, people were truly isolated. We have the privilege of being alone together through digital media. Our generation is not confined in their bodies, and we are able to maintain remote sociability, labor, education, entertainment. So it's a privilege. Let's see the glass half full here. Now, the digital cultural theory that is fit to explain all this, what we're going through, comes from the 1990s, when researchers documented the practices of early adopters, spending around 6 hours a day in forums and chats, forming virtual communities, doing social and political tasks as role play, basically. And they had what Sherry Turkle called a life on screen in her seminal book from 1995, a life based on a bit of text and a lot of imagination. These then marginal possibilities fueled the utopian discourses that imagined all of us creating distance intimacies, remote social institutions, distant learning, working from home. And since then, we developed technologies that made screen life more engaging, more embedded in everyday lives of mainstream population. Digital media activity has been taking an increasingly growing part in our everyday lives. However, life was still predominantly embodied, physically based, and location dependent for most people. Hybrid, yes, augmented, if you will, but with a firm foot in the physical. And ironically, it is the dystopian circumstances of a global pandemic that invokes these conditions of the imagined 90s utopia, a life lived entirely on screen. Now, the problem here is that our entire social theory assumes embodied relations. This is the context it was formed and made for. And when it doesn't seem to hold in mediated settings, we rush into these dystopian thoughts about the digital generation. We have an empathy deficiency, we avoid intimacy, we self-obsess, we're narcissists. We've heard these things before associated with various media practices. When sociality is translated into digital settings, it changes form. And we need perhaps media theory now, not just social theory, in order to identify and evaluate the new forms that sociality, intimacy, empathy may take. So we need to understand media affordances as social settings from a phenomenological perspective. Here's one example of what I mean that will help us transition to talking about Zoom nowadays. So maybe you know Isaac Asimov's novel from 1976 called The Naked Sun. It occurs on a planet in which people don't meet in flesh anymore, just screens and holograms. And a man from Earth that came to investigate a murder on this planet walks on a victim's wife while she just got out of the shower. But she's merely, he's merely a hologram, she's a hologram, so she doesn't care. So she tells him, don't worry. I mean, he apologized and everything. She tells him, you don't see me. You see my image, you're viewing me. And he's intrigued. That makes a difference. I see you, but I see you with my own eyes, he tells her. To which she replies, you're just viewing me right now. You can't touch me, can you? Or smell me or anything like that. If you could if you were seeing me. Right now, I'm 200 miles away from you at least. So how can it be the same thing? Now, this is an interesting dialogue. It hounded me for years. And now, I think in our augmented, mediatized lives, we rejected that difference in practice. We accepted viewing as equivalent to seeing and learned to rely exclusively on visual perception for things that might require more senses. I don't know if you've ever thought of that, of how ridiculous and absurd it is to infer or presume sexual attraction on Tinder solely based on viewing two-dimensional images, right? That's a different story perhaps, but a most notable example was that time when celebrity nude photos were hacked from the cloud and spread online, and Jennifer Lawrence accused any person that viewed her nude photo just by opening it and looking at it on the media, accused them of sexual harassment. So this anonymous gaze was not just viewing for her, it was seeing, despite the safe distance. So the distance between actions and words, perception and interaction was already significantly blurring in our augmented lives prior to COVID-19. Moving to exclusive remoteness, virtuality now, sharpens such questions and affords the opportunity to adjust our concepts. To me, the question here is, can we live meaningful lives as information in the media, or do we need to keep our bodies in the loop somehow? And to what end? So let's take touch, for example. We know we need it, and we feel its absence, especially during these days of social distances. But can we perhaps experience the essence, concept, Platonic idea of touch without the actual embodied sense of touch? Through an analogy of touch, maybe? So I want to share my screen for a second to show you an interesting art project that was done in Israel. Okay, just a few seconds of it, called Pixel Touch by Miri Segal and Jonathan Bar-Yura. They did it on Zoom, and you see how this works? Just by the fact that I'm moving, I'm seeing myself intersect with another person's image, and it feels like touching. You see here. Okay, so This is, all we have here is feedback that is generated from my movement that results in visual overlap with another's image that we interpret as proximity. And people said that participated in this project that they felt embarrassed or excited of this intersection with another person. It felt like touch. Okay? So this is not just about touching with our imagination, it's a translation of one sense to another. And this is what mediation is really about, according to Bruno Latour. It's a process of translation. But as we know from translation between languages, translation is never a perfect reproduction. And Latour also warns us that this entails a displacement of purpose, and that small displacement could mean the world to us. So let's examine the phenomenology of Zoom versus the traditional fully embodied experience of meeting face-to-face. This interface we're in right now is designed as a perfect metaphor of face-to-face meetings, suggesting this is a one-to-one translation, and we should act and react the same. But is it really? There are small technical differences that seem insignificant, but they could have radical ramification on our interaction and its consequences. Okay? So you really all probably heard and read all those articles that came out recently about the Zoom fatigue, why our evolutionary mechanism are not wired for reading signals from talking heads like we are right now. My perspective here is more anthropological or even, conversation research. And I could talk for hours about this. There are a lot of really small differences, but maybe I'll give another one that perhaps you weren't thinking of, but you're doing this all the time. When you want to talk, you open your mouth. And you have to make a decision, to open your mouth and share something. But now you have to do another action. You have another decision point. You unmute yourself. And then when you have two decision points, even in economical behaviorists say that the more decision points you have, you would tend to opt out. So you have two decision points in order to talk. A lot of people will talk less because of that. See, because I have to decide to share and then decide to unmute. Two actions before I open my mouth. Not like face-to-face, right? So as I said, I could talk hours about this, but I would try to weave a quick narrative that addresses three such technical examples, small technical stuff that seem the same, but are in fact lost in translation. And I think they have grave ramifications. So one of them would be simply seeing myself while I'm speaking, okay? And the other would be the technical inability for eye contact. Technically, I can't do that. If I'm looking straight into the camera, you experience me as eye contact, but I can see you. I see you in my peripheral vision. In order to see you, when I'm looking at you now, then you're not experiencing me in eye contact. So, we can't lock eyes technically. So that will be the second thing. And the third thing is the fact that we have such huge control over our exposure. We can mute, unmute, close our camera, as some of us here are doing, arrange our frame accordingly, you see only part of the body, you see only what's in the frame, a lot of control mechanisms. So all these three add up to one interesting grand ramification. Philosophers like Emmanuel Levinas or Martin Buber or Zygmunt Bauman worried about the ethics of connection from a distance. The assumption was that face-to-face settings allows us little control over our exposure to others. And this is actually a good thing for them. This is where the magic of encountering otherness and being moved to action by it truly happens. And we need eye contact for that situation, since I see you means I see into you. Through the eyes are the windows of the soul for Levinas. And this is the key for intimacy, trust, empathy. We have, there's this research that if you actually lock eyes with somebody for long, you can fall in love with anyone. Perhaps you've heard about these things, right? So it's important for sociality, and it doesn't happen on Zoom if our eyes don't lock on one another technically. In that case, I just view you. I watch you as if you were just another tab containing a piece of media content. What makes it worse is if I'm busy looking at me while talking to you. Could you imagine presenting in front of a room while holding a mirror at your face at the same time? This unnecessary self-awareness further hinders other-oriented communication. So for social theory, this is a disaster and a loss of the makeup of society, how we do sociality even. But if we think through media theory, we may notice other expressions of empathy and trust created elsewhere. Perhaps through viral sharing or selfie practices that entail witnessing of distant suffering. Perhaps where the eyes don't work, the story will. We're all still moved to action by a good story. So the only news here is that regular people in interpersonal communication need perhaps to adopt media strategies in order to approach us remotely. It isn't about the traditional notions of the face and the eye anymore. So it won't work, not even through representations of the face and the eye. But we should look for it elsewhere, I think. It doesn't mean that it's gone. So these are the differences between media life and life. Media were invented as a solution to durability across space and time, and they got better and better in overcoming space and time. However, space and time are not merely obstacles that waste our resources. They are context for human lives and fundamental to our experience. Experience is in fact a process, like this hero journey, right? It's a ritual sequence, a procedure. It's not just information transfer. Even the term information processing assumes a process of internalization of information. So anthropologists see our entire lives as a series of rites of passage that our bodies need in order to move between categories, situations. So did you ever go to a music concert in which the minute you enter the venue, the band jump on stage and play their greatest hit? That's an inconceivable, right? Because when we get somewhere, it doesn't mean we're actually there yet. It takes us some time to settle in, get comfortable, collect our thoughts, and even when we're present, we're not open to receive yet. We need to warm up. This is why we have opening acts, and the energy builds slowly to a climax. We take our cues from other bodies around us and from the organization of the space, architecture, color, sounds. We adjust our performances accordingly. Our body reacts to it. And finally, we need space-time body practices to end things as well, slowly come out of climax, separate from things so they won't linger when we move to the next thing. Maybe we need to reflect or share to conclude the experience. This is how embodied humans work, and this is why we need space and time for. So when all events are remote now, all is on Zoom. I call it Zoomification of our lives, right? We simply click and we're there. We can schedule very different events back to back, thinking we saved space-time. But the trick is that our bodies still go through the same processes, regardless. So did you allow yourselves today the proper rite of passage before this event? Say, log in a few minutes earlier? Or did you throw yourself straight into the deep waters of 9:30 a.m.? Do you plan to click on a different Zoom link at 11 a.m. sharp, expecting a seamless transition from one type of event to the other, just like switching TV channels? When your family conversation, college class, favorite artist performance all happen on the same screen and have quite similar settings, can they even qualify as experiences, or are they just pieces of content, information, pixels, more of the same? I would say that process is what really got canceled in COVID-19. Process was being hindered before by our augmented life to begin with. That's part of the allure of technology. It automates and cuts processes, shrinking time so you can try more stuff and still have FOMO. But trying to satisfy FOMO is self-defeating, since the body cannot really live in the speed of thought. So the more you try to take in, the less you can hold on to. We have a saying in Hebrew, grasp all, lose all. So there's a reason why we don't just fast forward our entire lives. Some things need to remain slow and dense, and the meaning of life would be to push through them. So once you understand how you work, you can exercise agency here and pace and humanize the experience for yourself. Don't trust just visual perception to generate full experience. You see how tiring it is, as Casey shared with us. Don't burden the visual with the labor of all the senses. It's not just about being more tired as a result. It's simply a poor excuse for living. You don't live through one sense. Try to, we can do stuff like arrange our space accordingly, dress up for different Zoom events. I don't know, light a candle, bring a soda, limit our attention somehow. We're so used that our behavior is regulated from the outside by the limitation of space or policy of an institution. And Zoom is an opportunity for self-discipline through self-customization. I think the context of religion is one of the most useful to learn from here. And I think it's not a chance that, Asta, you made a comparison to religious rites, rituals as well. I think religion is an institution that creates sacredness through the regulation of behavior and controlled access. This institution indeed faces major challenges in the digital era, because digital is all about freedom or individual control, less authority and ability to exercise authority, and of course, constant access to things. And we've accepted remote and virtual experiences as authentic for many mundane situations. However, when it comes to doing religion, even the youngest people who grew up in augmented realities often express conservative views. That is where we need actual church, actual mentor, actual community, actual ritual objects, etc. So the remote virtual versions just don't cut it. They don't feel sacred unless an official authority acknowledges it, controls access to it, separates the sacred from the profane activity, which is what religion is, according to sociologists like Emil Durkheim. And I find it fascinating, since spirituality is that one thing that you do with your imagination and agency anyway. It happens within you, and although you need material things to invoke that transformation, that is not necessary and not where the meaning of the action lies. So the one domain where virtual should be even more successful than material, since it's one step closer to the inner transcendental immaterial realm of spirit, is perhaps the hardest for us to accept as authentic when it's remote or online. Now, in early internet days, many people felt this way, that the internet is closer to the realm of spirits. New pagan covens called themselves techno-pagans, claiming that cyberspace is a doorway to the astral plane, and a circle cast online is just as sacred as one cast in the ground in nature, and perhaps even more so. And many people did pilgrimages to holy places like Lourdes in France and Kirkpatrick in Ireland and Wailing Wall in Jerusalem through websites. And they insisted on the validity of virtual pilgrimages, getting the fruits of the inner transformation through online interaction alone. In the 1990s, religious scholars and mainstream populations were quite skeptical about that. But now, during COVID-19, we see religious institutions' rhetoric conveying those same ideas of the 90s to their believers. And I want to quickly share screen again and show you just an example from last week of how this is a place in Portugal, which they have their pilgrimage in mid-May every year. And for the first year, because of COVID-19, the pilgrims couldn't come. And the pastors here created a page called Pilgrim by the Heart with a hashtag. And they had, this whole explanation in Portuguese here, how the pilgrimage is really, making physical pilgrimage is just crutches. It's the crutches. You don't need the physical stuff. The real pilgrimage is in your heart. It's a pilgrimage of the heart. And this year we get the privilege to do this together, and they published this daily steps that you can download here in order to do every day this week, a pilgrimage in your heart until the climax, the day of the actual pilgrimage that you have to reach. Okay, so I think it's really interesting, this kind of things. And to conclude, perhaps those both topics, doing the same thing remotely is very far from being the same thing on many levels. The little displacement, which is an integral part of translation process, could be radical. And a small change may force us sometimes to rethink the whole purpose of the thing. Digital religion scholar Heidi Campbell has published a book a couple of weeks ago about the distant church during COVID-19, which included interviews with pastors that told her that they had to rethink the whole idea of what church is, just by, trying to move the sermon remotely. That's it. It's just a small translation of the ritual. For a long time, it was an event. Church was an event with Sunday service as its central expression. But now they started thinking, is this what church really should be about? Perhaps there's an opportunity here for other expressions to emerge. There are more churchness, what church is. And I think we should identify a similar opportunity in this crisis to rethink what are the expressions of our lives? What is human life about? What are the expressions? And when we return to this augmented situation, perhaps, when we will have both online, offline, remote, and close, we would want to allocate our resources, perhaps, and organize our practices between remote, virtual, and physical, based on awareness of the affordances of each facet of reality, and exercise agency and choice to assure that we get the best of both worlds in augmentation rather than end up in a lose-lose situation. And it isn't just about technology, it's about how we choose to use it. It is up to you now, for example, to open all your cameras right now, put all your attention on this screen, ask me something in the chat to engage. Or, just listen to me like a podcast while you're doing dishes, that's fine. You decide if this is a meeting for you or I'm another piece of content that you consume today. The implicit silent daily question we will all be facing as we come out of the screens is, which parts of our lives are we fine skimming through like feeds of unprocessed information, and which should we bother to experience and afford it due process? I leave you with that.